The women's soccer team goes dancing.
And a review of the football team's season on this week's Pro Spotlight.
All this and more coming up on All Access.
Welcome to All Access, the show that delivers a lot of knockout kicks. Kind of like Holly Holm did to Ronda Rousey Saturday night. I'm Cody Decker.
And I'm John Patterson. She's still beautiful though, Cody.
She is still beautiful, even though she's going to have some swelling to deal with.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Absolutely. She's fine though. She'll get back to her on her feet.
Take it away, buddy.
All right, buddy, let's get started. The Rowan University women's swimming and dive team beat Ramapo College 135-126. With the win, the Profs improved their record to 2-2 and 1-0 in the NJAC. Rowan took first place in the 400 medley and 200 freestyle relays. The medley relay team included Paulina Deneva, Olivia Wodowicz, Gabrielle Gligor, and Miranda Coughlin. Julie Sheehan, Paulina Deneva, Gabby Gliger, and Coughlin were on the free relay. Wodowicz also went on to win the 100 and 200 meter breaststrokes and the 200 individual medley. Next, Rowan swims at Pace University along with St. Peter's University on Saturday, November 21st at 1 p.m.
The Rowan University men's swim dive team also took on Ramapo College on Saturday. They defeated the NJAC opponent 198-64. With the win, Rowan improves to a 2-2 record. On the day, the Profs won both relays and 11 of the 12 individual events. The 400 medley relay of Joe Furs, Tyler Coe, Nick Marks, and Jesse Novak came in at first with a time of 3 minutes and 31 seconds. The 200 freestyle relay had a winning time of 1 minute and 24 seconds. Tyler Coe, Eric Feuerstein, Nick Marks, and Jesse Novak were on the free relay. Jesse Novak was also awarded a Rowan's Male Athlete of the Week. Next week, Rowan travels to Pace University on Saturday, November 21st for a 1 p.m. tri-meet that includes St. Peter's University.
The Rowan University women's soccer team advanced to the third round of the NCAA tournament after a shutout wins over LaSalle and Lynchburg University. They defeated LaSalle 2-0 from goals scored by Maxine New and Catherine McCary. Goalie Shelby Money posted 3 saves during her shutout. In the second round, a late goal by midfielder Dara Wagner gave the Profs a 1-0 win against Lynchburg. Her goal came in the 88th minute, assisted by forward Maxine New. Goalie Shelby Money turned away 5 shots for her 7th shutout of the season. The next game comes against undefeated Messiah College on Saturday, November 21st for a 1 p.m. game.
Now for all the buzz in the world of pro sports, we turn over to the most handsome man on All Access, Lenny Snee, for this week's Pro Talk.
That's totally debatable.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, look at me. I mean, look at you.
Look at me, man.
Look at
I'm
you,
glowing
bro.
in these lights.
Boy, if we wasn't on set.
Turn it over. Go ahead.
Okay.
Thanks, John. I actually do think I'm the best looking guy on All Access. They're crazy. This week in pro sports, there's a new king of quarterbacks as Broncos quarterback and future Hall of Famer Peyton Manning broke the record for most career passing yards on Sunday. The record of 71,838 yards had previously been held by Brett Favre since 2007. Peyton followed his record-breaking pass with an abysmal day, however, only collecting 35 yards with 4 interceptions, and was eventually replaced by Brock Osweiler. And in baseball, the offseason is in full swing with the first big trade happening this past weekend. Shutdown closer Craig Kimbrell was dealt to Boston after a year spent as the anchor of the San Diego Padres bullpen. San Diego is coming off a disappointing season. They were projected to clinch a playoff berth but ended up with a 74-88 record and missed the playoffs. Kimbrell will look to continue his dominance and show the American League just how good he is. Over to the NBA, where my story stays consistent. The Warriors are still atop the headlines as they remain undefeated. They're still being led by Steph Curry, who is being called the best player on the planet right now, and he's averaging 33 points per game. The Warriors are now 11-0, and they look to keep the streak this week against the Raptors, against the Clippers, and against the Bulls. The NHL has a team that is nearly as hot in the New York Rangers. The Rangers have won 9 straight games behind the stellar net mining of Henrik Lundqvist, who is 10-2-2 this season with a 1.69 goals against average and a .947 save percentage. Also in New York is forward Matt Zuccarello, who has 9 goals and 9 assists on the season. And finally, as John said before, the biggest story in sports this weekend took place Saturday night in the Octagon. The main event of UFC 193 featured star bantamweight fighter Ronda Rousey, who was poised to defend her title against Holly Holm. The fight was even in the first round, but in the second round, Holm connected a hard left kick into the neck of Rousey, leading to the first loss of Rousey's so far dominant career, and crowning Holm as the bantamweight champion of the world. That's all I have for you on this week's Pro Talk. John and Cody will have updates on both the Profs basketball teams after the break. Then Deshaun Waller sits down with Cody Decker and Steven Rodriguez in this week's edition of Prof Spotlight, so stay tuned for more All Access.
Welcome back to All Access. We have ice hockey and football highlights, but first let's tip off the segment with updates on the basketball teams and how they started their seasons. Take it away, John.
I'm going to take it, all right. The men's soccer team fell to Dickinson College in overtime in the first round of the NCAA Division III tournament. Forward Will Braken scored the game winner for Dickinson in the extra stanza. Forward Travis Ward scored a late goal for the Profs to send the game into overtime. Goalie Kyle Dennis also stopped 7 shots. The Profs end their season with a 16-6 overall record, going 6-3 in the New Jersey Athletic Conference.
On Friday evening, the Rowan women's basketball team had their season opener against Lehman College. It was an 81-73 victory over Lehman College in the Hampton Inn holiday tip-off hosted by Messiah College. It was the season opener for both teams. In the 8-point victory, guard Anissa Sanchez scored 22 points, grabbed 6 rebounds, and had 4 steals, as well as 3 assists. Guard forward Caitlin Schulstrom tallied 13 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 assists. With this win, the Profs faced Susquehanna in the championship game on Saturday. In that game, Rowan forced overtime to win by 9 points. Rowan is 2-0 to start the season. Rowan outscored Susquehanna 10-1 in the extra session. Guard Anissa Sanchez and forward Kate Matthews each collected a double-double. Sanchez was named the tournament's most valuable player, and Matthews was named to the all-tournament team. Sanchez had 19 points and 11 rebounds, while Matthews tallied 10 points and 13 boards. Next, Rowan hosts Delaware Valley University in its home opener on Wednesday, November 18th at 7 p.m.
The men's basketball team opened up their season with a tough loss to Salisbury University, 62-61, in the Widener tip-off for autism awareness on Friday night. The game was tied with 1 minute and 26 seconds left to go, and both teams went back and forth taking the lead. But Salisbury had the final possession that gave them the victory. With 2 free throws from guard Adrian Strawn, he tallied 15 points, 2 assists, and 3 steals in the win for the Seagulls. Then, on Saturday, in the consolation game against Washington College, Rowan would go on to win 78-64. Forward Gary Carthen was the top scorer for the Profs with 14 points. Guard Chris O'Connor pitched in with 10 points and was named to the all-tournament team. He had an 18-point performance in the game against Salisbury. The Profs opened up with a 1-1 record and will play their home opener Tuesday night against Newman University. Tip-off is scheduled for 7 p.m.
So, John, your favorite sport has now started back up on campus.
Oh, yes. Listen, basketball is the only sport. We're talking about practice.
No comment once again, back to the Mets fan joke from earlier in the season. Now we're going to turn things over to Deshaun Waller for this week's Prof Spotlight.
I'm Deshaun Waller here with this week's edition of Prof Spotlight. Joining me at this time is Rowan football and the commentators Cody Decker and Steven Rodriguez. Thanks for joining us today.
I had to come a long way from the other side of the studio.
Exactly. Let's get right to it. The Profs, they started the season all 4-0, being ranked as high as 13th in the nation, according to D3Football.com, top 25 polls. But going down the stretch, they finished 2-4 and ended the season at 6-4. It's time to give out grades. What grade would you give the offense for this year's performance?
The offense, I'm going to give them a B-. Really, they played well through the first 4 games, playing some of the teams in the NJAC that were kind of question marks during the season. And those first 4 games, Dante Pinckney did what he had to do, and Whit Marcelin and the rest of the running backs took care of it on the ground. When it got to mid-season, they started playing the tougher teams. Salisbury coming into the conference, Wesley coming into the conference. Those were pretty good defenses that they had to face, nationally ranked defenses. And, Rowan had a tougher time. Pinckney had to throw the ball more. He wasn't throwing as great. He was being successful. They were competitive in those games, but he didn't get the job done enough, and that offense as a whole really didn't get the job done enough against those teams they scored more points on them, and Rowan had plenty of opportunities to score. They didn't capitalize in the big situation. So I give them B- on the year. It was a good season for the offense. I think Dante Pinckney has a little bit of work to do, but Quincy Lambert coming in at running back next year could be the feature back, and hopefully they'll improve on it.
No, I agree. I gave him a B-. I was going to give him a C+. Cody had to talk me out of it. Solely because, when they had Whit Marcelin, I feel like, they were clicking on all cylinders. The offense looked good. They started out 4-0. When Pinckney needed to throw the ball more, when you needed that quarterback, he just wasn't there. And I think that even falls back to last year. They just haven't had that guy at quarterback. They have these endless running backs, Quincy Lambert, they have a lot going forward. But they just don't have a guy that, when it comes down to crunch time, can get the job done from the quarterback position. So B- for me.
So we both can agree that the offense gets around a B grade. What grade would you give the defense?
Defense gets a B on the season for me. I think they were the top NJAC defense in allowing points. So I think 15 points a game going into that last game against TCNJ, and there were a lot of great players on that defense. The front seven always had a presence in the game. The linebackers, Darren Dungy led by them, Josh Popper on the line, Sebastian LaJoca had a couple nice games. There were a lot of leaders on that front line, and the secondary did its job. They covered the deep ball. Eddie Davis, Jared Sanchez, I think, had a combined 7 or 8 interceptions on the season. They did their job as well. So they were a great defense. They really were. It came down to lowering the grade for me from an A when, they played that Salisbury, that Wesley team. The 2 new additions to the conference that made the difference for the NJAC this year. They were just a ton of powerhouses that came in. Christopher Newport was also a very competitive team. And, the defense didn't get it done in some situations, but most games they did, which is why I think, they got off to that 4-0 start and had some success towards the end.
Yeah, no, I'm in that B+ range. I lowered it from an A grade with those big games. When they needed that defense to step up the most, they let up a lot of points, and the points they gave up were just like long drives where it looked like, that at one time stout defense was kind of on roller skates, and, you kind of didn't really expect that from them. But, at the same time, I'll give them a little higher. I'll give them a B+ because, for a while, Rowan's offense didn't get any points in that first half. And, as a defense, to hold teams to 6-0 and 10-0, in the first half, and to come out and keep it close in the third quarter, 10-7, it's just, it's not easy, game in and game out. So you kind of have to give them, a little pat on the back for that. They really carried this team for a while there.
Absolutely. And how would you assess the special teams performance this year?
Tell you what, we didn't see the special teams much at home this season. It was very weird. I didn't think they have any opportunities against Southern Virginia during homecoming. But I will give them a B-. I think the special teams, every time we saw them at home return a punt, Steve, I mean, really, they had a couple of nice returns during the games. And, they got yardage. They averaged 22 on punt returns this season. 22 yards of punt return, so that's pretty good. They didn't have too many touchbacks. They had a lot of opportunities to get returns and get the offense in good field position.
No, I was about to mention the field position. From what we've seen, that in these games, they don't really kick it to them, or they won't kick it to their skill guys. They try to kick it to that front wall. I mean, you got Fortune back there. You got Smith, Jamel Smith, who had a free kick return, in that Wesley game that was important. They didn't really get as many opportunities, but, from a field position aspect, even with the punch, they had sure hands, no fumbles, no muffs, which is kind of what you need. You won't give anything, take anything away from them, but at the same time, nothing too explosive. I'll give them a B on this as well. Can't really down them for anything, not too many ups, but, solid overall, I think.
I think Mark Diedrichson did his job as the punter this year. He had a couple of games where he had some short punts. Tywin Knighton did his job kicking a lot of good field goals. He had a good success rate this year, too.
Yeah.
All right, so B grades all across the board for offense, defense, and special teams. Now to switch topics a little bit, there's the big question. Most people want to know, who's your offense MVP?
Whit Marcelin. And I don't think it's a surprise to anybody, but
Consensus.
Whit. Yeah, exactly right.
Both sides here.
Career broke 21 school records. I mean, in this season, he surpassed 1,000 yards for 8 games played, and it's a shame he had to go down with the injury. It really is. But Witt had another great season. He was reliable on the offense. He had a great offensive line to help him out as well. But Witt's a speedy guy. He can make the big plays. He broke the big plays, and it was because of him that there were big plays that turned games, that turned to victory for the Profs. So it's definitely Whit Marshall in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's Witt for me as well. I mean, I just said it, but we saw it in that TCNJ game. That was the first game we called from Witt's injury, and it looked like a similar story for Rowan. You saw the same script, slow first half, and in that second half, you're waiting for that spark. Russ was catching those passes on the outside. He was doing what he could. Pickney was hitting some passes, but they didn't have that breakout guy that at any point in time could just break out an 87-yarder, which he did so many times this year and throughout his career. And that's really what was missing for Rowan down the stretch, that big play kind of mentality that Witt brought.
Absolutely. So who's this year's defense MVP?
Defensive MVP goes to Darren Dungy, leading tackler for the Profs. Had a couple forced fumbles, a couple interceptions as a linebacker, and he probably had a great season. He won NJAC Defensive Player of the Week twice this season. Really just a key player in the NJAC in general. I think if there's an all-defense team for the NJAC, he should definitely be there. A key presence on that linebacking core. He pretty much led the play calls for the defense, adjusting them. He had the best view at it, and just a true leader, and he's going to be missed after the senior season. The linebacking core really needs to step up next season on defense.
Yeah, I know. Dungy stands on his own. He has 50 more tackles than anyone else. For me, defensive MVP is probably going to have to go to Josh Popper, just because from the years past, from what we've seen, they always had a strong, front seven, front eight, but that defensive line was causing havoc. But this year I felt like the presence on the defensive line kind of lacked a little bit, and when it lacked, the only person we kind of called, Lajoka was there, but Popper was the guy, jumping up, swatting passes. He caught one at the line of scrimmage, almost returned it for a touchdown. Him and Dungy kind of led this defense, but it could go either way. But for me, it would have to be Josh Popper.
There's going to be a lot of guys on defense next year who are going to need to step up. Jared Sanchez is going to have to be the primary cornerback, and they're going to miss a little bit of that front seven as well. So they're going to have to stay competitive in the NJAC. The defense is going to have to kind of reform next season, and the offense needs to find its image as well.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, Cody, you went with Dungy, and Stefan, you go with Popper. Yeah. And that is all the time we have this week for this edition of Prof Spotlight. I'd like to thank Cody and Steven for joining us at the studio. Coming up after the break, Cody and John have more updates on everything Rowan sports, so stay right here for more All Access.
Welcome back to All Access. We have hockey talk, but I would talk about it, but basketball is obviously better, so I'm going to let Cody talk about the hockey.
I'm the hockey guy anyway. Let's change the camera, and here we go. Coming off an overtime loss to Penn State, the Rowan ice hockey team looked to bounce back at home against another MAC North rival, the Rider Broncs. Opening up the scoring with about 7 minutes left in the first period was Broncs forward Connor Fox, who scored with Rider down a man on the ice. Responding in the closing seconds of the first was Prof left wing Alex Polis. In the second frame, it was Rowan getting the upper hand with a power play goal from forward Connor McEwen. Answering right back were the Broncs with a goal from defenseman Brett Ansbacher to tie the score and take another stalemate into the second intermission. But the Profs proved that sometimes it is not how you start, rather it's how you finish. They finished with 2 goals to put the game out of reach and clinch the victory. They were scored by defenseman Andrew Doherty and setter Corey Geringer. The 4-2 victory gave Rowan their second win against Rider this season.
Being in the heart of their league schedule, the Profs would travel to the Prudential Center for a Sunday matinee against the Wagner Seahawks, another MAC North rival. In the slew of penalties throughout the first period, someone was bound to score. Left wing Alex Polis answered the call with an unassisted shorthanded goal. A minute and 14 seconds later, center Brandon Hutchinson would tie the game, and a 1-1 score line would be taken into the second period. The lone goal in the second was scored by Prof center Corey Geringer, and the Profs would control the momentum of the game from there on. 4 Profs scored in the third period, including Matt Morelli, Brett Lechevsky, Grayson Petty, and Christopher McDermott. Hutchinson would score again for the Seahawks, but they could not provide enough boom to get back into the game. With the final score of Rowan 6, Wagner 2. With the win, Rowan improved to a 9-3 overall record and took first place in the MAC North with a record of 4-0-1 and 9 points. They will travel to face Army on Friday night And you can catch that game at live.rtnch5.com.
The Rowan University football team fell to the College of New Jersey 20-0 in the final game of the regular season. For TCNJ, running back Victor Scalisi ran the ball 47 times for 264 yards and 2 touchdowns. For Rowan, running back Quincy Lambert carried the ball 11 times for 35 yards. Quarterback Dante Pinckney threw for 54 yards on 7 completions. Wide receiver Russ Fortune made 4 receptions for 37 yards. On the defensive side, lineman Sebastian LaJoca had a game-high 13 tackles. Bobby Barbieri, John Barillo, and Darren Dungy each combined for 30 tackles. Dungy also completed the season with a team record 115 tackles, breaking the previous record of 112 set back in 2011. The Profs finished the season with a 6-4 overall record, going 5-4 in the New Jersey Athletic Conference.
So, I was looking up the revenue of hockey and the revenue of basketball.
Yeah.
People like basketball more.
What are you talking about? Revenue and people liking basketball?
Pretty much, more people watch basketball. That's why the
Are
revenue
you talking
is so
ticket
high.
sales and TV sales?
We're talking everything.
We're going to have to get back to this next week, folks. We're kind of a little bit out of time here.
Well, that is all the time we have here for you this week. On behalf of this man, Lenny Schnee, Deshaun Waller, and the entire All Access team, I'm John Patterson. Bro, they have a lot more revenue as in we make more money.